Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tech Sales and GTM Mentors APAC. I'm joined today by Beth Nyberg. Beth, welcome to the pod.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Really excited to get you on. You've got a fantastic career today, Area Vice President at DocuSign, 5 years with Salesforce before that. So lots I want to ask you, but let's start from the beginning. What do I need to know about your foundations or upbringing that has led you to such a performance-driven industry that is sales?
Yeah, so I think I'm probably not alone here, but I definitely didn't plan out to get into tech sales. I was actually in a role, I was working for a really large retailer, and I was in a learning and development role. And so a part of my job was delivering national training content. I was getting on and off planes, it was really costly, and I just wasn't really sure what was landing. So I had a really big problem to solve. And I ended up finding an app, so technology, to solve this business problem. And we were able to partner with an LMS, deliver the training through an app, obviously really cost effective. I could test the comprehension of the material and also make sure that I was compliant. So I saw the value of technology and solving business problems for the first time, and I was really blown away. And I ended up becoming quite a nerd about this particular app. So I was working with the vendor and just trying to get more value out of the application. And in the end, they said, why don't you come and work for us and in a
Right.
sales role? And now let me tell you, when they said sales, I wasn't sure I wanted to be in sales. I had this idea in my head about a salesperson that was convincing people to buy things they don't need, like that, the used car salesman kind of idea. And I think I even asked at the time, can I be an account manager? Or can you change my title? Because I didn't identify with the salesperson. Now, as we all know in this industry, that is absolutely not the case. We're customer obsessed, and solution selling is highly, highly skilled. It's a highly skilled craft in which we get to solve business problems. And now I just love what I do. It's fast paced. We work with incredibly intelligent people, solve problems every day, make a massive impact. And there's nowhere else I'd be.
Absolutely. How common do you think it is? Because I know that I felt that way, Beth, getting into recruitment, which is, of course, very sales related. I had the same vision. And I remember a few times saying, look, I'll never work in recruitment or sales, not for me. And that played out as well. How common do you think that type of viewpoint is? And do we miss a lot of people in the industry as a result, do you think?
I think we've had a rebrand in the last few years, and a lot of the people who I've worked with recently wanted to be in tech sales. It was a really respected profession for them. So I
Mm.
think, a lot of people doing great work has been able to change that perception. But certainly for me back in the day, it all sounded very scary, very foreign, and I really didn't identify with that sales title.
Yeah, really interesting. And so let's talk about the journey since then, career trajectory. It's obviously something that you've owned. You've obviously done very well in the positions that you've been in since. Talk to me about career trajectory, and that's what that's meant to you.
Yeah, look, I feel really grateful for my career, and I didn't have a plan necessarily. I sort of kind of ambled along through different roles and followed interest in what I was good at and what I was able to deliver results in, and sort of ended up in the perfect place for me. And, this is my dream job. An AVP role in tech, it really, really suits me. But I think following what I enjoyed, working really hard, working with great people, has always done me well. Do I wish I had a career plan a while ago? Yes, I do. And I can give you some advice on that. But I think paying attention in your career to what your superpowers are, what you're really excellent at, and making sure you double down on that and follow where that leads you, is definitely good advice.
Did you plan to become a leader when you were an individual contributor? Were you thinking about becoming an AVP at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd done a lot of leadership previously. My mom will say I was born bossy. So I'd always naturally fallen into leadership roles at the cafe, or, the hospitality or the retail store that I was working in. So I had a lot of leadership years under my belt. And I actually, when I went to go to Salesforce, I pitched myself as a leader to come in there because I'd been leading sales teams. And Salesforce being Salesforce, went, you know what, we like you, but you can come in as an AE and prove yourself, and then we can unlock that leadership path for you. And I mean, it was humbling, but I learned so much doing that work. So I am grateful for that time.
Absolutely. And so the last 10 years, Salesforce and DocuSign, no doubt, and if you don't mind me saying, quite a quick ascent into the senior leader position, obviously backed by performance and success. Can you talk about that quite quick ascent and how that came about and what pressures and hardships and struggles and challenges you faced to get to this point so far?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I will say with that really rapid career growth, you can have a career plan, and you can absolutely kind of identify those gaps, work on that skills, work on that experience, put your best foot forward. But sometimes with the speed, a lot of it is timing, right? You control the controllables. And if you're in a growing market, you're in a really dynamic organization, you're demonstrating a track record of success, and everybody knows where you want to go, then you get to go along for that ride. But the speed of things isn't necessarily always something that's in your control. So for myself, I joined DocuSign at a fantastic time for the business. I was able to bring a lot of the Salesforce smarts, and Salesforce does a fantastic job. They give you a little mini MBA in tech sales. And DocuSign, they need a little bit more rigor at the time in the org, and a little bit more sales enablement, and a bit more mechanical thinking about the organization. So we were able to implement that and do really well. And so as the business grew, I had the opportunity to grow with it. But I wouldn't say that was necessarily 100% down to my doing. It is a little bit right place, right time sometimes.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that. So it sounds like right time, right exposure, because the compound interest of having that exposure at that time would have meant you'd have leapfrogged perhaps your learning journey if you'd have just stayed in quite a linear path. And it's really interesting thinking about the sporting world, which is my background. And sometimes people ask me, why is it that that person plays international football now, has made a career in professional football, and 3 or 4 years ago they were in the same team as you? You know, there didn't seem to be too much of a gap. And I think what I've found is that the people who have gone on to be ultra successful and be international players has been that they had a chance, a debut, right time, and in that debut they did really well, took the opportunity, and then all of a sudden they were in that first team, and all of a sudden the exposure that they were getting on a week to week was 10x what they might have been getting a month before, and that timing and opportunity just sped the way. Do you think it sounds like that's quite a similar experience to you too in tech sales?
Yeah, the timing and that opportunity is something you can never control. So, um, obviously delivering on results and being someone that's trusted in the organization, and has that record of success puts you in a good position. Making sure everybody knows your career aspirations, and working on those skill gaps or that experience for those roles really helps as well. But when they're available and how quickly you can move forward, yeah, sometimes that's timing.
And there's some pressure and the highs and the lows that come with that type of ascent. Could you talk to some of those experiences and what that's been like?
Yeah. So look, the industry is fantastic, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is fast paced. It is high pressure. It is very dynamic. A lot of people out there in our space are on a monthly target. And so there's no rest in a monthly target. Everybody's running at that goal, wipe the dashboard, you're on zero. And we start again. And so that in itself can be very consuming, very consuming. And so I think that is difficult if you're someone who's ambitious and driven, and you're on a dashboard and you want to be at the top, to balance that with other things in your life, with self-care, and making sure that you give time and energy to things that are important for your whole life and your well-being and your health as well. And I can definitely talk a bit more to my own examples there, but it is a great industry for many reasons, but it's also one in which you do have to watch out for that mounting stress and pressure.
How do you balance it, Beth? What's been your formula?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you my story, because I'm actually currently taking a little break, a little bit of time for myself and my family. And I did I did notice, I did get some signs that it was probably about time to do a bit of a reset. I was working, I was loving the role. I actually wasn't burnt out. I didn't feel burnt out. I wasn't disenfranchised with the business. I loved my team. I loved my boss. Everything was going really well, but I had probably neglected a few areas in my life, and, exercise, good sleep, drinking water, and just some family and friends, and spending a little bit of time there. Those things that really help your mindset and make you resilient to the stresses in life. And I definitely had some things that needed a reset. I didn't actually realize myself that I'd become somewhat imbalanced, and I just got an eye twitch. So I was working away, and I just started getting like this twitch, and it got worse and worse and worse. And it actually turned into, I don't know if you've ever had vertigo. Hopefully not. It's like a dizziness, loss of, it's like you're drunk at work, essentially. I started getting vertigo and a few other things. And I realized it was probably my body telling me, tugging at me to pay attention to some of these other areas of health that I was neglecting a little bit. And so, I worked with the team and the boss on a succession plan and made the trajectory out of that business, like, the best way. And, I feel really proud of how the org is set up and how well everybody's performing. But to give myself a break to reset, to get that balance right, and make sure that mental and physical health were in check before jumping back into the next thing.
Yeah, wow. And without that physical telltale sign, do you think you would have taken a break?
No, probably not, because I didn't feel burnt out. And I think it's probably good advice for everybody to try and listen to those cues, because you may need to make some tweaks before you are completely burnt out. And I, in fact, suggest that you do, because we're waiting to that moment where you can't go on. It is overwhelming and you're not enjoying the role. That's too late, really. That's sort of after you've neglected maybe some of the signs that there needs a bit more balance.
Yeah, got it. And timing seems to play a part here as well, right? Because fortunately, you had a good 4 or 5 years, really successful years in two successive sprints, right? Where if a break might have come earlier on, it might have. And I don't want to, talk in a toxic way about not taking time off, because you absolutely should. And I think we've kind of nailed some telltale signs there. But if that might have come earlier on in that sprint, would the ascent have been so linear? What are your thoughts on thinking about sprints and when you might take some time and how to align that with career trajectory?
Yeah, there's definitely something to that. If you can be really self-aware and plan for these things that recharge you, around important times for the business, obviously Q4, we want to be in, we want to be on. And then there's other times in the year that might make sense for you to take a few weeks off and have a bit of a relax. I will also say there's practices that you can do, that, and everybody's different. Some people do exercise or meditation, or whatever it is for you, that don't require you to stop working, but that little mini daily recharge that will help you have that element of balance but still be on the tools. But yeah, if you can be aware of these things and plan for them and have breaks at the right time, it definitely works in partnership with the business to make sure that you're both able to make the most of that run.
Absolutely. Let's talk about something you mentioned a bit earlier on, Beth, was which you've been in charge of sales programs as well. So you've got a really interesting, broad discipline background in that you've been responsible for putting processes and optimizing operations in a commercial sales organization. Could you talk about your philosophy on setting up a commercial sales practice and why that's been so successful today?
Yeah, this is definitely what I've spent the majority of the last 10 years living and breathing. So I've got a lot of thoughts, and a lot of them have come from successes, potentially more from failures when things go really badly, that you learn big lessons. But I'd probably boil, the commercial org of any business, and I'm referring to the more high volume, high velocity end of half of the business, should really be a machine for the organization. You should be able to model a predictable revenue stream that you can rely on. So it's really beautiful in that way. But there's a lot of things that you need to get right to make that work. The two pieces I would say, firstly, is building an intentional culture. So right people and keeping them motivated. And the second is around that org design. So the mechanics, like the machine, and managing to those metrics. I'll talk about both of those. Jump in if you have any questions. Probably the people and values and motivation piece is obviously the hardest to get right, actually. And sometimes when it's wrong, there is a definite lag time between when you can get on top of things and fix them. I think organizational psychology is fascinating. If you're a reader, Adam Grant is an organizational psychologist that I really like, that does a bit of work around the impact of having givers and takers in organizations. But if you're running an organization or part of an org, I think values and understanding the values that are key to your organization thriving is the first point. Making sure that you're aligned on them. Everybody knows what they are, how we hire for them, how we live them, and how we hold people accountable to those. So if you talk about the values and demonstrate them, everybody knows what they are. It ends up a bit like a self-cleaning engine, really. The group will hold people accountable to these values, and you'll end up with the right kind of people in the organization. And so once you've got the right players in place, it's really about making sure that they are highly motivated. And I've done a lot of training over the years on leading teams and motivating individuals. Probably the one that resonated the most, I think I need to credit Culture Amp here for delivering it, was this concept of TOMO, or total motivation. And there was kind of 3 Ps in this concept: play, purpose, and potential. And you can tap into those, and any leader can tap into those. Even individuals can tap into those to harness their own level of motivation. And what that means is, like, the play element, like, how much better is work if you enjoy it? It's that joy in the job. It's doing work that you like, injecting laughter, playfulness, games, even like making humor a failure, like getting on the team meeting and everybody's like, worst fail of the week, and somebody, recounts a call that went really badly, and we laugh and we give it a prize. That lightness, that playfulness in the workplace, actually real, and that joy really helps people stay motivated. The purpose piece is, it's an obvious one, but people care about the impact of their work. It is deeply tied to being motivated. And so you understand the why of all of your directs, like why they show up, why this work's important to them, what impact is, giving that feedback loop where they feel like they're doing a good job. You can definitely tie into that, a really simple way. Like if someone's financial incentives, let's say they're saving up for an engagement ring or a puppy or a house or whatever that is, at that time, that's their why. That's why they're there. And you understanding that as their leader can really tap into that motivation. We understand how to get there, how those commercial goals will get to those financial metrics. We've got an engagement ring in our plan on a page for the month, and we're talking about that. We're visualizing it. That's highly motivating because that's their reason for doing that job, and it's making that link. And then potential is really understanding how doing this job gets me to the next thing that I want. So that sense of achieving here will unlock the next thing. And the simplest way is obviously the next job that they want.
Oh,
And
yes.
so getting that promotion, being really clear with that career plan, what do I need to do here from a results, from a skills, from a learning perspective, demonstrating the experience to unlock the next job. And then having leaders who are highly engaged in getting them the next job is a game changer. People like to work for people who are genuinely invested in their success, even if that means being promoted outside of their team. That's a great leader, and that's highly motivating as well.
Can you talk about givers and takers? You touched on that, Beth.
Yeah, givers and takers. So I really believe in a win as a team, selling as a team sport, this concept of shared success in an organization. And, a deal team there's never one person that wins a deal. So your ability to win together, motivate a group of people towards shared goals is really important. And so kind of when you're thinking about that with the profiles that you hire, for example, you might have that lone wolf character who could be highly driven, highly successful, achieve great results for you. But on the way through, they're not going to share those values. So it might tread on toes, cause some friction, insult the solutions engineer, take a deal from somebody else. And the breaking of those values and kind of undermining that win as a team, shared success culture actually does so much more damage to that culture of success in other areas, that it's just not worth that compromise. So understanding how we can hire for people that are collaborative, that are givers, that genuinely want others to succeed in the organization, knowing how to hire for that and how to build an org that holds people accountable to those values. I think you will get, especially in a commercial org where it is very much more community minded potentially than sometimes enterprise reps can be a little bit less connected. I feel like that drives great results.
Right. Okay. Got it. So no takers on the team.
No. That
Oh,
personality trait I find to be detrimental in the
got
org.
it. So what if somebody was thinking about their motivations, and let's say it's a person that is just ultra focused on themselves, right? It is that house, financial motive. So they want to buy a house. That's all they are really focused on. They want to win. They're not going to step on toes. They're polite, they're courteous, and they're not causing any issues. But ultimately, they're thinking, this isn't a team sport. I just want to go and, you know, win my goal, but I'm going to make sure that I'm courteous around my team and I'm a team player in that sense. Does that person thrive? Or
Selling's
there's no
always,
person?
selling's always a team sport. So
Okay.
you're going to have to bring your leader in for that deal. The deal desk team is going to have to negotiate on the pricing
Mm.
outcomes. Their marketing might have to, partner with you on a special piece of collateral to get that brand over the line. I would suggest it's very rare that in this industry you alone can be highly successful.
Got it.
So some of it might not come naturally to people, but if those values are important in the organization, yeah, they will learn to celebrate the success of their peers and shout them out and be courteous and be collaborative. There's skills you can learn even if they don't come naturally to you, so long as that value can become important.
It's a great call out, yeah. Because I think a lot of people, when we talk about that, they think, "What's the other reps? Am I sharing deals with the other reps? I'm trying to buy my own house, but there's so many other people involved in the deal that are maybe non-direct revenue generating. They're the people that need to be part of the team too.
Yeah.
So that's a good call out. That's something I was thinking of. Okay, cool. So we touched on it, the types of people that make a great team. Then, what's been your philosophy on hiring and finding those people?
Yeah, I was thinking about this actually in preparation, and I was trying to picture my hiring scorecard because I've hired thousands of people, and in retail we used to do massive, open a lot of stores and do really big hiring, and it's obviously a little bit more high touch, lower volume in the tech industry. But I think hiring the right people is one of the most important skills a leader can. Attracting the right talent, retaining that talent, developing that talent, number one focus for a leader. I think for us, there's a base level of EQ and IQ that's required. It's a complex industry. You're navigating change, complexity, and uncertainty, and ambiguity, and all that craziness. We need to make the complex simple. So you got to be able to connect with people and be intelligent enough. On top of that, my top three are hungry, coachable, and resilient. Hungry is a no-brainer. I'm sure everyone who comes on here says hungry. Driven people get stuff done. They're the kinds of people that we want. Coachable for me, particularly when we're hiring more junior people, always important. You could call it growth mindset or whatever you like around that, is that we're not the finished product. And coachable people, they're self-aware. So they have a thinking around diagnosing their development opportunities and then seeking out those learning experiences. They take charge of their own learning journey. They take feedback on board, they seek feedback, and they're very driven to always be better. So that's a non-negotiable for me. And then resilience is increasingly important, I would say. Sales is tough, increasingly tough. And at this very point in time, it's kind of rough out there. And so your ability to manage your mindset, your attitude, and overcome those obstacles and maintain a focus on productivity is imperative. And I'll give you an example of kind of the three levels that you might see. So big deal is lost. Very sad. Rep is very sad. They've just lost something they thought they were going to get. And, you know, rep one is devastated, right? They sulk for the rest of the week. They're not productive. They're whining about it to anyone who'll listen. The body language is down. Everybody's comforting them. So not only are they unproductive, they're sucking other people into the whole of unproductive thinking. So
Yep.
this is a rep who's not particularly resilient to this defeat. And don't get me wrong, it sucks, right? But that's worst case scenario. Rep two, like a little bit put out. Maybe they take the afternoon off. They go to the pub, dust themselves off, and they're back the next day. The high performing rep who has like mastered their mindset around a loss or a setback, this fuels them. They lose a big deal, and they go into hyperdrive. They block the afternoon out and they're like, I've got to fill this gap in my pipeline. I am doubling down on activity. I'm actually going to have one more crack at the deal because I don't think it's totally lost. And I've got an idea. I think we can do X, Y, and Z. And then I'm also going to make sure I fill this pipeline gap because I thought I was getting this and now I'm not. And that's just not okay. So I'm going to work extra hard to get things back on track. And so if you imagine the trajectory of those three people with how they've handled this defeat, they're really different outcomes.
Great examples, yeah, and that's brilliant. The two things I will look out for are growth mindset and resilience, and it's so consistent with every sales leader that I talk to, and they say something similar. You know, those three are in there, typically in their top three or four. What I really liked is that you said scorecard, because most sales leaders can talk to you about the kind of person and the kind of characteristics they're looking for, but very rarely do sales leaders actually articulate it and write it down and say, this is our profile and we're not gonna budge from what we're looking for here. How important has it been for you in actually writing down what that profile looks like and using a scorecard?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this. So what are the attributes of a successful salesperson in our business? And then what are the behaviors? So I do, I don't do, if I have this attribute, and they're really job specific. So painting out an example of the behaviors that we see that demonstrates that. And then how do we question for that? So what are the ways that we can dive in and examine and understand so that we see if that attribute is, past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior. So how have they shown up in that example, and does that represent this attribute that we're looking for? And is everyone perfect? No. But there's definitely some things that you cannot compromise on. And I've learned that the hard way. I definitely have learned that the hard way from missing or compromising on those in the hiring process, and then realizing that they're not attributes that we can go without.
And if it's a new candidate, Beth, somebody you're seeing for the first time, you're looking at their profile and you're interviewing them, let's take coachability, resilience, growth mindset. What kind of evaluation techniques have you found to be the best predictors of success in those traits?
So like the interview style?
Sorry, no. So what would you say when we're thinking about we want somebody to be resilient or coachable? What are you looking at as an evaluation method, whether it be their experience or your interview with them?
Yeah, definitely the interview. We generally, in a panel style interview format, will have a couple of attributes each that we might like to really drill down on, and we're the boss of uncovering whether we're comfortable with how they've shown up in that particular pillar,
Right.
and just drilling into past experiences. So, that coachable, like, what are your current development areas? What are you doing about it? Talk me through a challenge you had in your last role, or like a setback. How did you overcome that? What was that lesson? How did you apply that in a future deal? How do you make sure that mistake doesn't happen again? And if you ask enough questions around that, you will be able to uncover and ask questions about the questions and kind of scratch down beneath the surface, if they truly have a track record of demonstrating that attribute.
Got it. So it's really drilling down on behavioral questions, it sounds like, and they're looking for patterns within those answers.
Yeah.
Sure. Salespeople are prolific at selling themselves, of course, particularly their own resume. Are there any red flags or warning signs that you look out for when interviewing sales reps and you're looking for these characteristics?
Um, you know what? I might be about to tell you my biggest secret when interviewing. So, one way we can assess for some of that professional resilience is to see how somebody handles a little setback in flight, because customers don't always tell us what we want to hear, and um, you're often put in situations where you didn't get the answer you wanted, or there's a curveball, or something's become a little bit difficult. So, in an interview, we will often throw a little curveball in there, or give a little piece of feedback on the fly that maybe isn't going to be exactly what they wanted to hear. And then in real time, we get to see, are they able to have that professional resilience to handle that little setback and then press on with poise. And I feel like that's quite a good indicator of how they would respond to that in a deal.
Yeah, wow, real time. Okay, you hit it here first. We might have to make that particular answer subscribe only, so that the
No,
entire
not.
network doesn't think ahead next time they interview with you. But that's really interesting, actually, to because a lot of it is rehearsed, right? So some people can interview really well, but that's a really good way to indicate whether they have that trait. We mentioned the things that the key traits of the best salespeople that you identified, Beth. Is there anything else, thinking about the people that you've worked with who've been the best in the industry, is there anything else more tactical that you think stands out about those people, or is it the traits really that have really led them through their careers?
Yeah, look, I've seen a lot of A players in my time, and there's certainly some commonalities, but there's not a magical secret necessarily. I
Mm.
don't, I don't think you can look at somebody. They don't have the magic wand. They're not particularly special. Like, they're no more special than you. And I think senior leaders still get imposter syndrome. A players still get nervous before a pitch. The best AE in the world still loses deals. So it's sometimes great and empowering to remember that they're all just people. Nothing's magical about them. I see people who really knock it out of the park, will manage their mindset really well. They're always getting better. So every setback's a lesson. They don't do it again. They're really refining and always improving. But they probably work harder than you. They're doing better than you. It's not rocket science, right? Like the AE that booked 5 more meetings than you because they did 30 more cold calls and a few extra hours work compounded week after week after week after week. Like, guess what? They're probably going to do better than you. It's a pretty simple concept. So I don't know if there's anything magical, but it's doing a lot of things consistently well.
Fantastic. And lastly, Beth, what career advice would you have for somebody that's just getting into the first couple of years, perhaps, of their tech sales career? What would you advise them?
Yeah. It is overwhelming, I would say. I can remember that feeling of just swimming through a sea of new acronyms that I'm trying to learn, but I just don't know what half the sentence meant, because everything is, ACV and all the things, the language that you learn to talk very fluently in the end. So don't be overwhelmed. It does click, is my advice. I would personally just try and consume the product knowledge as deeply as I possibly can in those early phases. You don't get a break from quota again. So if you get a ramp, you get a hot minute to get in there and really become a passionate advocate of the product and understand the problem it solves, then you'll be ahead of the pack. I definitely think that's good advice. Who's on top of the dash? I would just go check who's nailing it and then be a little shadow. What are they doing? How are they pitching? How are they structuring their days? What can you learn from what they're doing well? And lots of them as well. Spend as much time learning and shadowing, again, while you don't potentially have a full target, as you possibly can. And then managing your career. You asked about that as well, didn't you?
Did.
Yeah. Um, So I think a lot of people, myself a little bit included, lets their career happen to them. So I think if you have a vision fantastic. Like, you're already ahead of the pack if you know where you want to go. Um, you just have to make a plan. So I would really build that career plan out, that document. I really believe in these as a vehicle to help you get where you want to go. So where are we now? What's the next job? What's the job after the job? What's the 5-year job? What's my dream job? And that might be vague. It might be like, I want to work in America, or I want to be a CEO, or, whatever that is for you. But just understanding, because everything you're building out is going to take you in a direction. And those experiences and those lessons, you want them to be forming you to go in the direction that you want. So get a living, breathing document. Build it collaboratively. Make it simple, clean, plan on a page. Keep it alive, reference it. And then once you know the next job, it's current state, future state. Where am I? I'm a mid-market AE and I want to get into enterprise. So what are the skills and experience that is the gap for me? You have a guess, and then you go check that with the enterprise RVP or with your current manager. And I say, I think these are my current skill gaps. I'm prioritizing them, and here's the experience I'll need. This is what I'm going to be working on. And documenting it and bringing people along for the journey does two things. Like, one, you'll be really focused on it. And two, you're letting everybody know what you're working on, right? So everybody's aware when that job comes up that John Joe has been working on XYZ and he wants to get into sales leadership. And for the last 3 years, it's been in his career development plan, and he's read these books and he's done this shadowing, and he put his hand up to be the team lead and do the forecasting when the manager was away. And all of that can help bridge an experience gap, because you've been seeking out intentional opportunities in your current role to learn about those things.
Yeah, right. So there's also an element of internal selling, you might say, in the right way, of course, but maybe sometimes reps are too focused on purely external selling, and they forget that they're working with people, and that's going to have a massive impact on their trajectory as well. Who can help them come along the way, who they can help. So, and that's a really good point you make. Thanks so much, Beth. I think you've articulated that there's no magic trick to becoming an A player. You've talked about some things that I think most reps would understand and be familiar with, but and a lot of those can be driven by your own motivations and your own activities. But I think you've articulated them in a way that is practical and tangible and evidenced by your own career trajectory that I think should be powerful for anybody listening. So thank you for sharing your experience and your advice on the pod. Lastly, we'd love to keep an eye on what you do next. No doubt it'll be a big role. Can you share what your plans are next or what you're up to?
No, it's top secret. I actually still enjoying my break. I'm about to pop down to the beach after this, actually. So just enjoying my my wellness journey at the moment, but I'll be back to it soon.
And if people out there want to follow you and learn more about your journey and keep tabs on you for advice, where's the best way they might keep in touch?
Yeah, great. I love mentoring the industry. I'm always happy to have a chat. I absolutely have some time at the moment as well. So feel free to reach out, follow me on LinkedIn, reach out to me there. Make sure you know what you want. I think that's good advice for reaching out to any mentor. What do you want to get out of that exchange? And that will help me make the most of our time. But feel free to send me a message.
Nice one. Beth, thanks so much again.
I've really enjoyed today. Thank you.